Thanksgiving had always been the one day when the whole family gathered around the same table. The house was filled with the smell of roasted food, fresh bread, and sweet desserts. Everyone was laughing, talking, and taking pictures together, holding a homemade apple pie with a warm smile. Imani Cube walked through the front door. She had spent hours baking it because she wanted this Thanksgiving to feel like old times. She believed the hard days were finally behind them. As she walked toward the dining table, she noticed one empty chair. She smiled, thinking it was waiting for her. But before she could sit down, her mother, Yvette Cube, looked at her with cold eyes and said, "There's no place for you at this table." The room fell completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every relative turned to look at Imani, but no one said a single word. She forced a small smile, thinking it had to be a joke. "Mom, what do you mean?" she asked quietly. Without saying another word, Yvette picked up Imani's plate and moved it away from the table. "You stopped being part of this family a long time ago," she said. The words hit Imani harder than anything she had ever heard. Her hands trembled as she stood there, still holding the pie she had made with love. Then, the sound of a chair scraping across the floor broke the silence. Grandma Mama Abina Coffee slowly stood up. She looked around the room, her eyes filled with disappointment. Then she took a deep breath and said, "If my granddaughter has no place at this table, then neither does the truth I've protected for all these years." No one knew it yet, but those words were about to change the entire family's life forever. Everything had not always been this way. Years earlier, after Mani's father passed away, their whole world fell apart. The house became quiet, the bills kept coming, and everyone looked lost. While others were still trying to accept the pain, Imani quietly made a promise to herself. She would do whatever it took to keep her family together. She got a full-time job and worked long hours without complaining. Every month, most of her salary went straight to the family. She paid Toriro's school and college fees because she wanted her younger brother to have the future their father had dreamed of. Whenever her mother, Yvette, needed medicine or another hospital visit, Imani paid every bill without asking for anything in return. There were months when she skipped buying new clothes for herself just so there would be enough money to keep the lights on and food in the kitchen. When the family nearly lost their home because they couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments, Imani secretly worked extra weekends. She accepted overtime, took freelance work at night, and saved every dollar she could. Finally, she made the payment that saved the house. Nobody outside the family ever knew how hard she had worked. She never wanted praise. She only wanted her family to stay together. But no matter how much she sacrificed, things never changed. Whenever Toriro achieved something, everyone celebrated him. If he passed an exam, relatives said, "We're so proud of our son." If he got a good opportunity, they called him the family's greatest success. No one ever asked who had made those opportunities possible. Imani would quietly stand in the background, smiling while everyone clapped for her brother. She never interrupted. She never reminded anyone that she had paid for his education. She simply stayed silent. Whenever she became tired or tried to think about her own dream, her mother always had the same answer. "Family comes first. You need to sacrifice a little more. Your brother still needs you." Those words became a part of Imani's life. Year after year, she gave more and more of herself until she hardly recognized the woman become. She wasn't treated like a daughter. She was treated like someone whose only purpose was to keep everyone else happy. Not once did her mother say, "Thank you." Not once did anyone ask, "Are you okay?" The more Imani gave, the more everyone expected from her. Slowly, she realized something heartbreaking. In that house, her sacrifices were remembered for a day, but her love was forgotten every single day. After the painful Thanksgiving dinner, the house slowly became quiet. One by one, the relatives left, whispering to each other about what had happened. Imani wiped the tears from her face, picked up the untouched pie she had brought, and quietly walked toward the front door. She didn't want to spend another minute in a house where she had just been told she didn't belong. Before she could leave, she felt a gentle hand touch her shoulder. It was Grandma Mama Abina Coffee. In a soft voice, she said, "Imani, come with me. There is something you need to see." Imani followed her upstairs without saying a word. Grandma closed the bedroom door behind them and walked slowly to an old wooden cabinet in the corner of the room. She reached inside and carefully pulled out a small wooden box covered with dust. It looked old, as if it had been hidden for many years. Grandma placed the box on the bed and gently opened it. Inside were neatly folded letters, tied together with a faded ribbon. Under them were old bank papers, legal documents, and a thick notebook with worn-out pages. Imani picked it up with shaking hands. The moment she saw the handwriting on the first page, her heart almost stopped. It was her father's diary. Tears filled her eyes as she softly touched his writing. "I haven't seen his handwriting since the day we buried him," she whispered. Grandma looked at her with sadness and said, "Your father wanted you to have this, but he never got the chance." Imani looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" Grandma took a deep breath before answering. "Your father knew something was wrong. Before he passed away, he told me to protect these papers until the right time. He wanted the truth to come out only if you were ever treated unfairly." She gently held Imani's hand. "He believed in you more than anyone else, but he never had the chance to tell the whole family the truth." Imani slowly opened one of the letters. Her father's name was signed at the bottom. Every word felt like he was speaking directly to her again. Her tears began to fall. For years, she had believed she simply wasn't loved enough. She thought she had failed as a daughter no matter how hard she tried. But as she looked at the letters, the bank papers, and her father's diary, a painful realization hit her. This was never just about being ignored. Someone had hidden the truth. Someone had kept secrets that changed her entire life. For the first time, Imani understood that her family had not only failed to obey her, they had betrayed her. The next morning, Grandma Mama Abina Coffee made one phone call. By noon, the family's old lawyer, Jelani Okeke, arrived at her house carrying a black leather briefcase. He had known Imani's father for many years and had helped him with every important legal matter. After greeting Grandma, he sat quietly at the dining table while the old wooden box was placed in front of him. One by one, he carefully examined the papers inside. He checked the bank documents, compared signatures, and read every page of Imani's father's handwritten diary. The room was completely silent except for the sound of papers turning. Imani watched him nervously. Her heart raced with every passing minute. Finally, Jelani adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Grandma. "These documents are genuine," he said quietly. "Every signature has been verified. Nothing here has been changed." Imani held her breath. "There is something you deserve to know." He pulled out one final document from the bottom of the box. "This is a family trust created by your father several years before he passed away." Imani frowned. "A trust?" Jelani nodded. "Yes. Your father wanted to make sure his family would always have a safe home. He placed the house into a legal trust instead of giving it directly to anyone." Imani looked confused. "But Mom always said the house belonged to her." Jelani slowly shook his head. "No, Imani, it never belonged to your mother." The words echoed through the room. For a moment, Imani couldn't even speak. Jelani continued reading from the document. "According to your father's instructions, the legal heir of this trust is one person." He looked up at her. "That person is you." Imani's eyes filled with tears. "Me?" "Yes," he replied. "Your father believed you would protect the family with kindness, honesty, and responsibility. That is why he chose you." Grandma quietly closed her eyes. She had carried this secret for years. Jelani placed the document gently on the table. "Your mother knew about this trust. She signed papers acknowledging it after your father's death." Imani felt her stomach tighten. "So, she always knew." Grandma slowly nodded. "Yes, the truth hurt more than the words spoken at Thanksgiving dinner. For years, Yvette had allowed everyone to believe the house belonged to her. She had acted as if she alone had the right to make every decision. She had hidden the truth from Toriro, from the relatives, and most painfully, from Imani herself. In one moment, everything finally made sense. She had spent years sacrificing her own dreams to save a home that had legally been entrusted to her all along. The greatest betrayal was not losing her seat at the Thanksgiving table. It was discovering that the people she loved had hidden the truth from her for years. Imani sat quietly, still trying to accept everything she had just learned. Her father's trust, the hidden documents, her mother's secret. It all felt too heavy to believe. She looked at Grandma Mama Abina Coffee with tears in her eyes. "Grandma," she asked softly, "if you knew the truth all these years, why didn't you tell me sooner?" Grandma took a slow, deep breath. There was sadness in her eyes, but there was also peace. "I wanted to," she replied. Many times. But I made a promise to your father. Imani listened carefully. He told me that truth only has power when people reveal their own hearts first. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Grandma looked directly at Imani and said something she never expected. This year's Thanksgiving was never just a family dinner. Imani frowned. It was a test. Grandma explained that for months she had been watching everyone in the family. She wanted to know who still cared about love, respect, and honesty, and who only cared about money and inheritance. She knew the truth hidden inside the wooden box could change everything, but before opening it, she wanted everyone to show their real character. I didn't have to ask anyone questions, Grandma said. I only had to watch how they treated you. Imani remembered every painful moment from that dinner. No one had offered her a chair. No one had defended her when Yvette pushed her plate away. Some relatives looked uncomfortable, but they stayed silent. Others simply kept eating as if nothing had happened. Grandma slowly shook her head. When your own mother told you there was no place for you at the table, everyone had a choice. They could stand beside you, or they could stay silent. She paused. They made their choice. Imani lowered her head as tears rolled down her cheek. Grandma reached over and gently held her hand. Greed doesn't always speak loudly, she said. Sometimes it hides behind silence. She explained that some relatives had already been talking for months about who would own the family house she was gone. Others believed Yvette would control everything forever. Very few people cared about the family itself. They were simply waiting for the inheritance. That dinner exposed every heart in that room, Grandma said quietly. Some failed because of their words. Others failed because they said nothing at all. Imani finally understood why Grandma had waited. The Thanksgiving table had never been about food. It had become the place where every mask fell away, every hidden motive was revealed, and every person's true character was exposed without anyone realizing they were being tested. The next morning, every close relative received the same message from lawyer Jelani Okeke. It was short but serious. Please come to Mama Abina Coffee's house at 10 a.m. This family meeting is important and everyone must be present. No one knew why they had been called. Some thought it was about the argument at Thanksgiving dinner. Others believed Grandma wanted the family to make peace. By 10 o'clock, everyone was sitting quietly in the living room. Even Yvette looked nervous. She tried not to show it. Toriro kept looking from one face to another, wondering what was happening. Imani arrived with Grandma and sat beside her without saying a word. Jelani stood up, placed a thick file on the table, and looked around the room. Today, he said calmly, I will read the original legal documents prepared by the late Mr. Nkyub. The room became completely silent. He carefully opened the file and began reading every page. He explained how Imani's father had created a family trust years before his death. Every document carried official signatures and legal stamps. There was no doubt that they were real. Some relatives looked shocked. Others slowly turned to look at Yvette. Then Jelani reached into his briefcase and placed a small voice recorder on the table. There is one more thing, he said. Your father left a recorded message. He asked me to play it if the family ever forgot the values he lived by. He pressed the play button. A familiar voice filled the room. Even after all these years, Imani recognized her father's voice immediately. Tears filled her eyes. My family, he said gently, if you are hearing this, it means I am no longer with you. Everyone listened without moving. Then his voice became stronger. If one day my eldest daughter is treated like a stranger, she deserves everything I built. The room froze. No one spoke. No one even breathed. Yvette's face lost all its color. She stared at the recorder in disbelief. The recording continued. Imani has the kindest heart in this family. She gives without asking for anything in return. If anyone ever forgets her value, these documents will remind them of the truth. By now, several relatives had tears in their eyes. Toriro slowly lowered his head. For the first time, he realized how much his sister had carried alone. When the recording ended, the silence felt heavier than any words. Every person in that room understood the same painful truth. The man they all loved had trusted Imani the most, and the daughter they had pushed away was the very one he had chosen to protect his family's future. The room was still silent after the recording. No one knew what to say. Tears were rolling down Imani's face, but she quickly wiped them away. She had never wanted anyone to feel sorry for her. She had only wanted to be treated like a daughter. Lawyer Jelani slowly opened another file. I don't believe the truth should stop here, he said. There are a few more things everyone needs to know. He placed several bank statements and payment records on the table. For the past several years, he explained, the mortgage payments for this house were not made by Yvette. Everyone looked at Yvette in surprise. Jelani continued. They were made by Imani. Several relatives gasped. Imani lowered her eyes. She had never planned for anyone to find out. When the family was close to losing this home, Imani quietly took extra work. She made every payment herself. She asked the bank not to tell anyone because she didn't want her family to feel ashamed. The room grew even quieter. Jelani picked up another folder. These are the hospital records. He looked at Grandma with respect before speaking again. Every medical bill for Mama Abina over the last few years was paid by Imani. Grandma smiled gently through her tears. There were nights, she said softly, when she stayed with me at the hospital until morning, then went straight to work without getting any sleep. Imani never mentioned those nights to anyone. She simply did what she believed a loving granddaughter should do. Then Jelani placed one last file on the table. This file is about Mr. Ncube's business. He explained that after Imani's father passed away, the business had started losing money. There was a real chance to close forever. While everyone thought the company had recovered on its own, the truth was very different. Imani used her savings and worked with clients after her regular job to keep the business alive, Jelani said. Without her, it would have collapsed years ago. Every relative stared at Imani in complete disbelief. Toriro slowly looked at his sister. You did all of that, he whispered. Imani gave a small, tired smile. I didn't do it for credit, she said quietly. I did it because Dad loved this family. Her simple answer broke the hearts of everyone in the room. For years, they had praised the wrong people. They had thanked the wrong person. The daughter they ignored had been carrying the entire family on her shoulders while asking for nothing in return. For the first time, every relative truly saw Imani, not as someone who was only expected to sacrifice, but as the strongest, kindest, and most faithful person in the entire family. And they realized they had noticed her value only after they had nearly lost her forever. No one spoke for a long time. The room that had once been filled with pride and loud opinions was now completely silent. Every relative kept their eyes on the floor, ashamed of what they had heard. The truth had changed everything in just a few minutes. Yvette remained frozen in her chair. She wanted to explain herself, but no words came out. For years, she had acted as if she was the one holding the family together. Now everyone knew that it had been Imani all along. The respect Yvette had enjoyed for so many years disappeared before her eyes. Some relatives quietly shook their heads in disappointment. Others looked at her with sadness instead of anger. They could not understand how a mother could treat the daughter who had sacrificed the most as if she did not belong. Across the room, Toriro slowly stood up. His eyes were red from crying. He looked at his sister, unable to meet her eyes for more than a second. I'm sorry, he whispered. I thought Mom was right. I believed everything she told me. I never asked how my school was paid for. I never asked who was helping Grandma. I never even noticed how tired you always looked. His voice broke. I should have stood beside you. Instead, I let you stand alone. Imani looked at her younger brother. She could see the regret on his face. It was real, but it could never erase the years she had spent feeling invisible. At that moment, Grandma slowly stood up. Even though her voice was calm, every word filled the room with emotion. A family doesn't lose its daughter in one day, she said. It loses her one insult at a time. No one dared to interrupt. Grandma looked around the room. Every time she was ignored, every time her sacrifice was expected instead of appreciated, every time someone stayed silent while she was hurt, you pushed her a little farther away. One by one, the relatives lowered their heads. They finally understood that the Thanksgiving dinner had not been the beginning of the problem. It had only revealed years of pain that had been growing in silence. Imani quietly stood in the middle of the room. Tears slowly rolled down her face, but these were not the tears of a woman begging to be loved. They were the tears of someone who finally knew the truth. She no longer questioned her worth. She no longer blamed herself for the way she had been treated. For the first time in many years, the heavy weight she had carried inside her heart began to disappear. She had not lost her family that day. She had finally found the peace they had taken from her for far too long. A few months passed, and Imani's life slowly began to change. Instead of looking back at the pain, she focused on building the future she had always dreamed of. She started her own consulting company, and with hard work and honesty, it quickly became successful. Her clients respected her, her team trusted her, and for the first time in many years, she felt appreciated. Her office was always busy, but when she came home in the evenings, there was something she valued even more than success: peace. No one was demanding another sacrifice. No one was telling her she wasn't enough. One quiet evening, after finishing a cup of tea, the doorbell suddenly rang. Imani walked to the door, wondering who could be visiting without calling first. She opened it. Standing on the porch was Yvette. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. This was not the confident woman Imani had known all her life. The pride was gone. The anger was gone. Her shoulders were low, and her eyes were filled with regret. She looked older than she had just a few months before. She held her hands together as if she didn't know what to do with them. Finally, in a soft voice, she said, "Can we be a family again?" Imani looked at her mother without saying a word. So many memories rushed back into her mind. She remembered working late nights to pay bills. She remembered skipping her own dreams for the family's future. Then she remembered the Thanksgiving dinner. She could still hear those painful words, "There's no place for you at this table." She could still see her mother picking up her plate in front of everyone. That memory had never left her. Yvette's eyes filled with tears. "I know I hurt you," she whispered. "I can't change what I did. I can't take back those words. But I think about that day every single night. I lost more than your trust. I lost my daughter." Imani felt tears gathering in her own eyes. She wanted to answer immediately. She wanted to ask why. She wanted to ask why it had taken so many years for her mother to see her worth. But the words would not come. Some wounds are created in a single moment. Others take years to heal. So instead of giving an answer, Imani simply stood there in silence. For the first time, it was not her mother who decided whether there was a place at the door. It was Imani. And this time, the choice belonged to her. 1 year later, Thanksgiving looked completely different for Imani. This time, she was the one welcoming people into her home. Her new house was warm, bright, and filled with laughter. The dining table was larger than the one she had grown up with. But what made it special was not the size. It was the people sitting around it. Her employees were there, smiling as they shared stories from work. Her best friend, Saad Bello, helped serve the food while making everyone laugh. Grandma Mama Abina Coffee sat proudly at the center of the table, watching everything with a peaceful smile. There were also neighbors, close friends, and people who had stood beside Imani during the hardest days of her life. No one was judging anyone. No one was competing for money or inheritance. Everyone was simply happy to be together. As dinner began, Grandma slowly lifted her glass. The room became quiet. With a gentle smile, she looked around the table and said, "The best families aren't always the ones you're born into. They're the ones who never ask you to earn your." Everyone smiled, and a few people wiped away tears. Imani looked around the table. Every seat was filled with kindness, respect, and love. For the first time in many years, she didn't feel like she had to prove that she belonged. She already did. After dinner, she quietly stepped outside onto the porch. The cool evening breeze touched her face as she looked up at the stars. She thought about her father. She thought about Grandma. She even thought about the painful Thanksgiving that had changed her life forever. A small smile appeared on her face as she softly whispered, "The day my mother said there was no place for me at her table was the day I finally found where I truly belonged." Sometimes the greatest heartbreak becomes the beginning of your greatest blessing. At Thanksgiving dinner, my mom told me there was no place for me at her table. But when Grandma stood up, the truth she had protected for years brought an entire family to its knees. And in the end, I didn't lose my family. I simply found the people who loved me without asking me to earn my place.